Welcome to another session of the Learning SEO Accelerator, in which we are going to cover about content optimization with the wonderful Crystal Carter from Wix. Crystal has tons of experience working in SEO overall, and particularly with content, right? And we know that, and pretty much this is one of the first things that you hear when you start doing SEO, right? Content is king. And a little bit of an overuse type of phrase. And the reality is that the importance of content is always there. It tends to shift through the different type of phases of the SEO process. However, it's definitely, let's say, the base of everything is what Google will understand of what your site is about, what your pages are about. So it's critical and fundamental that you understand how to optimize the existing pages of your website and what are the new pages, the new topics, new queries that you should target and how to target them, right? In order to satisfy the user need and intent, and also ultimately to be able to sell better on your website and allow the user to achieve their goals while allowing your business also to achieve their own goals, which is the whole purpose of an SEO process, right? So to start a little bit the conversation, right? When back in the day when I started doing SEO, when we talk about content optimization, it was very basic, right? Like Google has definitely come a long way with their level of sophistication of understanding content. So back in the day, I remember when I started doing SEO, there were questions still about, oh, should we add this term in plural or singular within the copy of the page? Or how many times should we repeat this particular keyword? Or if it was in Spanish, right? Like with accent or without accent? It's like, at this point, we know that the content should be natural, should be correct content, correct, that is on point and aligned with the intent of the information and the purpose of the page through the customer journey, the intent also and the goal of the user, with a commercial, more transactional, more informational. And that is also not about the number of words in the content or in the page, right? It's more about how it fulfills the user needs. Also, more from a qualitative perspective, we know that Google takes into account EEAT, the experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness of the content. So it's this extra layer of sophistication that we need to take to make our content relevant, on point, best in class, in order to fulfill the user need and to be able to compete in the right format too, like with the right structure, with the right information and insights to be able to perform as expected. So having said that, a little bit to set the base of our today's topic, Crystal, I wanted to start asking you regarding which are still today the most common issues, let's say mistakes, that you see websites doing when handling SEO processes with content.
I think if we're talking about content refreshes, one of the things that I sometimes see with that is that sometimes they will carry out a content refresh without understanding what's ranking on the page to begin with. And even if you're making a refresh or you're updating a piece of content that's ranking for a few keywords, it's very important to know which keywords those are, because that gives you an insight into what Google understands that page to be about and what users value about that page. So it's worth auditing the page before you start doing any optimization. So understand what you're ranking before. And I see a lot of people who are like, yeah, we're just going to change it. It's like, but what are you changing and why? So that's important. The other thing that we see is sometimes people will change so much that the backlinks aren't relevant. So if you haven't checked your backlinks to your page and you change a bunch of things, and let's say the page was about pets and it had a really good section about dogs. And let's say you said, I don't like dogs and I want to change most of this thing about pets to be about fish or something, then it might be the case that you haven't if your backlinks are all about the dog part of the page, then you might lose some of your backlinks. So it might be the case that people will look at the page later on and go, actually, this isn't about dogs anymore, and you're missing those backlinks. So that's important to think about as well, is your backlinks. And I think people often don't check that. Also, people will write. Oh, sorry. Do you want to jump in, Aleda?
I think that you cover actually, and you went and tackled one of this, I think, core, let's say, issues that a lot of websites have, that they don't realize that they actually need to update their content after a while. That content optimization is not a one-time thing that they need to do right at the start and then allow their content to get old and lack after a while of relevance, get outdated.
Right.
Just because
right.
they optimize their content at the beginning and they never update the content again, and they still have even the last year in their title, the metadata.
Right.
And then they wonder, oh, why have I lost rankings with it? It's like, it's because it's outdated. And there are certain topics that are more, let's say, sensible to get outdated quickly than others, but definitely everything get outdated eventually, right? So that is a great call, that we need to update content after a while. And for that is that we need to closely monitor our content performance, right? Like over time, it's still increasing in rankings as expected, in clicks, in engagement of users and conversions, more than just rankings, right? But engagement, conversions, and is that decreasing after a while? And if so, why? Is because of maybe Google hasn't even decreased the rankings, still ranking, but people are not clicking anymore. And maybe they're not clicking because you can tell from the title and meta description in the search results that it's not updated anymore. It's less appealing. And for that, it is important to revise and check which are the other pages that Google is now ranking better, and see if ours is competitive, if it is outdated, if it needs a little bit of an improvement or expansion, because our competitors are doing something extra that they didn't a year ago when we initially optimized the page too. You also covered something very important, right? If it is worthy at all, because many times we will go and start doing an audit on websites that have a lot of content, millions of pages, and the first question is like, oh, should I really prune this and eliminate these pages, following SEO best practices, of course, never 404, and that's it, 201 redirect, current categories, etc., or no index, etc., or is it worthy for me to optimize? And coincidentally, and now I don't know if you have seen, but I am actually a fan of flowcharts, and one of the that I have are actually about that. And actually, I just shared the link over the chat. And this is the criteria in flowchart, let's say, format that I tend to take into consideration. Is the content of our actual relevant topic for the site that the site is actually targeting and is part of the goal of the site to target and is relevant from a business standpoint? And you can fulfill this topic with useful, valuable offering that you can create, because many times it's because there was a rebranding, there was a merging, the company used to offer a product line or a service that is not offering it anymore. So it doesn't make sense for you to update this content or try to expand into that. And then, of course, other criteria, if the content is driving SEO or used to drive SEO, if so, for which queries, if it has value of different ways, if there are many other pages also targeting or ranking instead that you can consolidate with, rather than trying to create yet another page for it or trying to optimize this other page when there are cannibalization issues. So go and take a look at this flowchart, in which you can go a little bit, let's say, into every aspect or criteria to take into account to decide about this. But it's important that there's a shared understanding here that, yes, content optimization is not a one-time activity. You need to revise your content and monitor your content to see if it performs well, and eventually to validate if it is worthy to optimize, refresh or not. Right. And the refresh might just to expand it a little bit more or add a little bit of more insights, or might have to do with more, let's say, extreme type of structural changes. Right.
Right. So I generally think I don't know if I can share. I've got a slide that's like my sort of things of like, so why was the what so I ask like what's wrong with the existing content, right? Or what's the issue with the existing content? So sometimes it's like it wasn't ranking anymore. So it was ranking and it's not ranking anymore. Let me see if I can share. Let me see, share screen. I can. Okay. Share if I go slideshow. So yeah, so on this one, so what's wrong with the existing content? So like it was ranking and it's not anymore. So you can look at the SERP. Has it changed? Right? Sometimes Google will make a new SERP feature. And the reason why it's not ranking or why it's not getting any traffic anymore, it's not ranking anymore is because it's not eligible for that SERP feature. So it might mean that you need to look at that. Are there new competitors? Aleda just mentioned that in her thing. Your competitors are always working. Has your page changed? Has your page changed? Like maybe somebody changed a different part of it. Like maybe somebody redesigned the page and you didn't know about it, or maybe there's a new feature on the page, or maybe there's something structural, like maybe there were images on the page and maybe there's been a CDN update or something, and maybe the images aren't visible anymore or something. Have your backlinks changed? That can happen sometimes. Have your internal links changed? That's another thing. So maybe there was a high ranking page that had an internal link and then maybe it's gone or something like that. So these are things to think about. Have you published very similar content on your domain? And you don't know, and like maybe somebody published it on even a help documentation, and maybe that's what's going on. Maybe you need to make your content more distinct. So that's something to think about. The page is nearly ranking, right? So let's say you're looking at your page and you're like, oh, do we need to optimize this? And you want to know, like, so we talked about, and Aleda talked about this, is it up to date? So again, there's some things that are constantly changing. Like if you're talking about a technical thing, for instance, you might say like, has this technical information changed? Or, has something new developed in this region? For instance, is the content well formatted? So sometimes you have content that's doing great, but it doesn't have all the formatting. And this is something Aleda's covered as well. Is it actually relevant to your search intent? Again, like the search intent might change. Sometimes Google changes the search intent as well for a SERP. They'll realize that actually this SERP should go to here. And so then maybe the search intent might change. Does the query have new SERP features? We mentioned that. And like, are there internal links? That's another thing that can be a really quick win sometimes, is like making sure that it's linked up to the other pages so that people can actually get to them. And can your updates fix this? That's the other thing. Do you have the ability to fix these things?
And the resources, that is
the resources.
Key. Some like the first question here is key too. Has the SERP changed? Many times, and we know that after certain core updates, right? Google tend to shift the rank pages, and also many times it's not because there's nothing or something wrong with the page.
No.
It's just that they have identified that for this query, people are looking for a different type of information. So something for which, for example, many years ago, and I believe that potentially I have given examples similar to this for many queries that were brought. So for example, I don't know, why tennis shoes? A few years ago, Google ranked or tend to rank mostly listing pages, category pages of e-commerce websites purely for these terms. Nowadays, after a few shifts that they used to do with core updates, especially, they started to rank more and more guides and informational pieces. That's why choose for 2023 or for the summer of 2023. So if you see that you have a category page that is decreasing in rankings and traffic from a query like this, it's not about updating the category page. It's about creating a guide. Because even if you update the category page, it's obvious from the pages that Google is now ranking for this query that it's not about something lacking in this page. It's that another type of page is needed to fulfill the user need, right? So you need to be, well, you need to pay attention. You need to observe those pages that are ranking for the query, and you need to identify what has changed. What are the opportunities? Is because your particular page has fall behind versus the competitors in the quality of the content or some characteristic on the content, or is just because the type of content that now Google is ranking is completely different? And then you should assess if it makes sense for you to create such content or not, again, in your content strategy. This last ties a little bit of the other questions that I have here that I would like to move forward with, Crystal. what will be your to-go strategy for content optimization, right? And
okay,
you know that we start with first keyword research, keyword mapping. We need to map with the queries that we identify as goals to target with the content that we already have. We will see that many times we already have content for these queries. So it's about optimizing this existing content. In other times, it's not that we don't have content at all for these queries, but the type of content that we have doesn't connect with the intent of the query. So again, we have product pages or we have category pages, but the pages that are ranking for these queries are not products or categories, are guides, and we don't have guides. So in this particular case, it's not about optimizing content that we have, but creating new content. And we need to assess and validate with decision makers and business owners if, well, it makes sense for them to create this content business-wise, if they have the capacity, if they have the resources, and based on that, establish our content optimization and creation strategy for this group of queries. I will optimize this group of pages, and I want to get from this position to this position, and from this traffic to this traffic. And for all of this group of queries that I'm not yet able to rank at all because I don't have the pages, I don't have the content completely for them, I need to create this content with these characteristics and this format in order to be able to compete with these top pages that are already ranking in the top positions. Now, from a content optimization standpoint or creation standpoint, thankfully nowadays we have tons of tools. I think that we also mentioned a few of them in the sessions before. We have tools like specifically relevant tools, like we have Surfer, we have Phrase.ai, and there are neural text, there are content of optimization tools particularly focused on that. And then also within the platforms like SEMrush or Ahrefs, many of these tools like SEMrush especially has a content optimization tool or feature that you should have access to with the access that SEMrush gave to all of the Learning SEO participants. And in these tools, how they tend to work is that you will need to add the targeted term that you want, or the group of terms that you want to rank with each or existing page or content that you want to create. And what these tools will do is to scan the top in currently well-ranked search result pages, and they will tell you, look, these already ranked pages are already talking or covering these topics that are semantically related and connected with the targeted query. So it is recommended that you integrate these topics within the content, right? Again, these tools will try to, let's say, have a reference of number of times to include each topic, but we know that the concept of, I don't know, keyword ratio, stuff like that, I mean, has passed away long time ago. Google is much more sophisticated than that. So of course, these tools will give us references that we should use as inputs, but we shouldn't go crazy about, I need to add this term X times in my content because otherwise it won't be able to rank. No, many times also these tools will end up also suggesting terms that are not aligned with the content, your content nature, right? Because they have seen that there are other type of pages already ranking well that might integrate them and might make sense for these pages, but not to your own page. So don't feel push or pressure to add them. Again, common sense. You know your business, you know what you want to sell, you know better. The tools are there to help you, to support you, giving you insights, but they are not there to replace you. You know better what makes sense to your own content to integrate or not, right? Crystal, please feel free to elaborate.
Yes. I'm just going to jump in with a few tool things that I think are pretty good for people who are getting started and things. So like for keyword research, SEMrush has some great, SEMrush has the freemium things. So all the things I mentioned here are freemium or free. So SEMrush has some great keyword research tools and they've got a whole suite of like content optimization things, as Elena discussed. Also Asked is also a really good one for People also for getting the questions that come up in people also asked. So one of the great optimizations that you can do for existing content is making sure that it aligns with things like people also asked, that it aligns with some of the SERP features like related searches, and some of the times when Google's telling you that this is the kind of content that people want. Also ask is using people also ask, which sometimes updates quicker than the regular SERP. So if there's like a trending topic, let's say you're thinking, oh, we want to update this topic and make it more relevant to what's happening today. Like you can use also ask to give you ideas, content ideas of how to make your content fresher. And it's a really good tool for that. And then also Google Trends is also really useful for this. There's a content or there's a Crawling Mondays episode with myself, Aleda, and Abby Gleason talking about Google Trends and how that's really useful for keyword research and keeping your content fresh. And so if you're looking at research, if you're looking at updating content, it's a really good source for that. ChatGPT can sort of help you sometimes for like light keyword research, like light keyword research, and sometimes clustering as well. I wouldn't recommend it wholesale, but it can help you with some of the other things. Another thing for refreshing content is Wayback Machine. I've used this personally when I had a piece of content and we launched the website and the homepage, and we just saw that traffic was decreasing on the homepage. We were losing keywords on the homepage. And I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. And I used Wayback Machine to compare what the page was before and to what the page is now. And I noticed that actually there was a feature that was on the other page that we don't have now, and we should put that back. And then we'll have lots more keywords and things like that. So Wayback Machine can be good if there's been some changes maybe in the history of the page, and like maybe it used to rank for loads of stuff like 2 years ago, and you want to sort of bring that sort of stuff. SEO Chrome extension can be useful for figuring out links and different optimizations there. I mentioned SEMrush's on-page SEO, and if I may, this is something that we've built for Wix. I don't know if this is going to play. Is it going to play? Oh, it was before. This is the tool that we've set up, and basically it's connected to SEMrush. And what happens is you enter your keyword here, and it gives you on-page optimization opportunities within that particular page, and it helps you to guide you on some of your SEO optimizations. If you're just getting started, a tool like this can be really, really useful. As Aleda says, like, use your brain. so you don't need to necessarily follow every single thing there, but it can be a really useful guide, a really useful shorthand to help guide you with what things you need to think about when you are optimizing content. But yeah, tools are great. Tools are really, really useful, and can really help you accelerate your content optimization.
And then, of course, the fundamentals that we went right away, let's say, to the more meaty part of this, but titles, meta descriptions, headings with any SEO crawler will content duplication, issues, not targeting the exact same query with the exact same content, competing against each other, help Google to choose the correct one, the right one, right? And rather than trying to waste your content optimization efforts optimizing 10 pages about the exact same stuff that Google won't know which one to rank, optimize a single page for that particular query, satisfying
very well,
right? Very, very well, from titles, meta descriptions, headings, right? So again, very low-hanging fruit, especially at the start. I think it was Allison asking here, what are those things that we should look for when auditing content one-on-one? Take a look at the usage of how the titles are crafted. Many more times, Google nowadays will rewrite the whole titles, and not necessarily in the way that you want, just because they are too wordy, too long. The terms are duplicated many times. So take a look at how they look in search results to verify if you're well integrating the key term, the core terms in these titles, and they are differentiating from other pages that you inform well about what this page is about in the title and a meta description, and the same with headings, right? SEO 101s gets very overlooked many times, and then we mess with our heads about why Google is not ranking with meta, and we go with all of
right.
That. Is about that too. And
I think that
Crystal, please go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and I think the other thing about those basic things is that I think people forget that a lot of those are the root of some of the more exciting things. So, and this is, I know this, Aleda loves Flowchart. So this is one that I shared, and Aleda said was really that she enjoyed. So I'll just share this now. But like, you get, like, for instance, if you're looking for featured snippet optimizations, which is one of my favorite types of content optimizations, you're looking through your existing corpus of content, and you can look at the first thing you do, headers. Like, the first thing you look at is your headers. Like, do your headers work? Do you have relevant terms? Do you have good keyword copy? Do you have HTML lists? Like, have you used tables? Do you have, do you have schema? Like, things like that. And schema and featured snippets is a whole nother thing. But with the basics, you get to the good stuff. So make sure that you cover the basics so that you can get to the good stuff. It might seem like it's time consuming, but it's absolutely worth it.
Yes, something additional too, going to the next layer of sophistication too, is that more and more I will, let's say, highlight the importance of doing benchmarks and gap analysis versus the top ranked competitors for any query that you want to target. Okay, I want to target for best t-shirts for the summer, an example, right? And you might assume that is a guide, the one that you need to create, and the longer the better. So a lot of assumptions. No, go and take a look at which are the pages that Google is right now ranking for this query. What are the core characteristics beyond the basic, right? Okay, they are listing the reviews of the top 5 major merchants, right? And they are leaving reviews. Then you need to think about, how do I make something better? How do I fulfill the need of the user in a better or different way that has also the same informational intent, right? Maybe the angle of your content might be different, right? It doesn't matter, but it needs to be something that gives compelling and useful information for that user at that stage of the customer journey, right? So, and that is critical. And for that, I think if you see, a lot of what we're talking about is about understanding your industry, understanding your audience, understanding your goal. I think one of the questions that I see here from Ana Mayela is, content is usually optimized based on preview audit of existing content. Do you have any recommendations to be straightforward and do not have dependency of industry? No, everything that we create will depend on the industry, will depend on our audience, and it will change based on our specific audience need and use case and the context of our industry, right? So this is fundamental. And that is why, and here's another very important topic here that is also covered a little bit in the questions, AI, the usage of AI. If you see all what the highlight of all of what we have discussed so far in our conversation is our understanding of the business, user need, context, unique selling proposition, when to write about what is the best format for what. And this is something that you can pretend at this point to do in autopilot, at least with AI, right? Otherwise, you will need to write prompts that are this long for an AI to accurately grasp all of this information for more or less useful content, right? So that is why it is important that, yes, Google has said that AI is okay to generate content, but I will say in an era where content is democratized by AI, let's leverage this to accelerate a little bit the process that we follow for templated content to create content in bulk, but with always a layer of human-led strategy, validation, filtering, insights to make it unique, to make it really useful, to make it also compelling for those particular audiences that you want to target, because AI won't do that for you. And you want to give something extra that users won't find in any other page around, right? Yes, please.
Absolutely. So you mentioned on Google's opinion on AI. So they said on Google Search Central, they said, our advice considering AI generation, as explained, however content is produced, those seeking success in Google search should be looking to create original, high quality, people first content demonstrating qualities of EEAT. And they said that in Google Search Central. And somebody asked if I'm going to share the deck. I will share my deck, which will have some of the things and some other things as well. But as Aleida is saying, I think that we should be thinking about AI particularly as a tool, not as the wholesale content creator. It is a tool for content creation, it's not the creator. Like in the same way that the hammer is not the creator, not the builder of the house. The hammer is a tool to help you build the house. but you should know how to build a house before you get out your hammer. So it's really useful for expanding ideas. So, or if for instance, if English isn't your first language, it might be useful for helping you to sort of bridge some of those gaps. It can be useful for correcting copy. I very often will dictate if I'm writing something. I'll speak into a microphone, and it will do, the AI will write it, and then I can use another bit of AI to help correct my copy. That's really useful for that. It can help you to organize content. If you have a big long list that someone's given you, and you can say, can you group this list into themes? That's really useful. It can help to cut down on some of the time that you have to organize your content. I use it for loads of those sorts of things. It's really useful for that. But at the end of the day, as Aleida is saying, you should be the person who's in control of the content. And that's really when it does well, because it's unique content that ranks. If you just say, write me an article about whatever, it will just go blah, 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 blah. The facts may or may not be correct. It will be really boring to read. Like, it's very sort of strange. So if your content isn't unique, then it won't rank. So if you have something that has unique information, that's great. And also, we've been talking about lots of different skills. It works really, really well if you build your content skills to begin with, so that you can use it better, so that like, okay, I know my keywords, I know what I want to do with it. And then you can say, no, I don't want it like this, I want it like that, and that sort of thing. So it really, really helps if you use it as a tool rather than as the sort of guiding thing.
100%. So the tools are to support you, to give you input. It's up to you to decide if the input,
yes,
the tools are automating for you to advance faster, because you could actually manually gather this information, but that will take a lot of time, right? And you want to advance faster. Actually makes sense or not based on your own particular scenario. There are a couple of questions here regarding about that. Time is money. What content optimization process can we automate? We should automate those elements or areas that need to scale, and doesn't make sense to create manually, but where we are in control of the quality, where we can validate the quality. So for example, content for our category pages, for different or location pages, for example, we can create templated versions for this content that we can generate in bulk with AI, with our own insights that we know are accurate, integrating insights, and then validate manually that these are correct. And like that, we can make sure that these are unique, that they achieve our goals, etc., etc. But what is not, let's say, reasonable and desirable is that you leave this process in autopilot without validating, right? The same to your titles and meta description. I have seen many posts, right, like out there, like about automating your titles and meta descriptions with AI, whatever. Don't do that. Like, help AI to craft more compelling, optimized titles and meta description if you want. But I mean, I don't say this lightly. These 2 bits of elements are some of the most important ones of your content. I see actually also one of the questions about this. In some cases, it's valuable to optimize only meta description, considering that meta description are a ranking factor. That doesn't matter at all. Meta descriptions are not a ranking factor, but they are super important. It's one of the things that users will see of your page in search results. Is the description what the content is about, is where you should be inviting your users to click. If your meta description is crap, they won't click. So it doesn't matter that you rank first, because if it is something generic, duplicated, boring, not engaging, I won't click. So remember that you're not optimizing for machines. The machines should understand your content, but you're optimizing ultimately for the user. So your content should be more than just optimized, should be compelling, should be attractive, should be engaging, should be able to sell, should show that you are unique and worthy of the user attention and clicks and activity, right? So please take that into consideration when optimizing every single area of your or elements of your content. Not before, H1 is not a ranking factor, or is a very low ranking. At this point, who cares about if something in particular is Google has confirmed that it's a ranking factor or not? You know that is good for the user. And if it is good for the user, even if not right now, it will be eventually important for Google, because you know that Google cares about user experience, and it's only becoming more sophisticated to integrate anything related to user experience as a factor as a ranking signal, right? So you better go ahead and do it well since the start, because that only goes and align with good user experience, better conversions, better selling, which at the end of the day is what we want, right? So go beyond the, oh, is this a ranking factor or not? Nah, please, you know, it's good for the user, it's better to engage, more relevant, you should do it, right?
Yeah, I think that people think about rankings as if rankings are just rankings, but rankings are signals of user value. So rankings reflect what Google understands to be valuable to users. So lots of people are searching for lots of things, and Google knows which pages they're clicking on, and Google knows which pages people come back to and search again. So they want to show the content that they know people will be satisfied with the answer for. So their job is to organize information. That's what they say. That's where their mission statement is, to organize the world's information. So they want to give people good information. If your website has good information and they know that you will be able to satisfy that query, then that's what they will do. And in terms of ranking, you will rank if you satisfy the query. And it's not just, they're not just picking factors out of nowhere. You could have all of the factors, but if you don't actually satisfy the query, you're not going to rank, because Google will know very quickly that it doesn't add value for users.
Something important too, and we will address that more specifically in the EEAT session that we will have. But again, a lot of people say, oh, but EEAT are not specifically, again, ranking factors or signals that Google has confirmed that they actually take in consideration. But they take as an input when quality raters go and take and use this best, let's say, questions and best practices into consideration to let's say, improve the results later on anyway. So indirectly, well, they take this into consideration anyway, because they are aligned with user experience too. And that is why, and think about content optimization in this other way too. It's not only about, is this content more comprehensive, or is this content more informative, but also think about the experience that you give with this content too. Many times when you do this benchmark or audit or validation, you will see that you have better content than competitors, yes, but your content gives a worse experience. Why? Because it is full of ads. There are a lot of pop-ups popping up, and also, even if you give more information, your information is not backed up. There are no links to click to confirm your statements. But your competitors have half of the facts, but these facts are well backed. They all have links to the scientific sources, where users can continue researching about that particular topic, for example, and achieve their goals better, right? So think about all the elements that will help the users to fulfill their need, because they are definitely the extra, let's say, cherry on the top that will make the difference between ranking better, fulfilling better your goal or not.
And I think around the EEAT and content optimization, I think also where you put your energy should also have to do with what you're known for and what you know. So, they say expertise, authority, and trust. Part of that is like what the content of your blog is, what the content of your content is. So for instance, I am somebody who's very, like, I was talking about Barbie before we started the Barbie movie, before we started doing the thing. And I said how I used to have Barbies when I was a kid. Now I'm a big fan of Barbie or whatever, but like my professional blog is about SEO. So I wouldn't have like my top 10 favorite Barbies on my website, because Google doesn't have any information to validate that I know anything about Barbies other than that I just say that I like Barbies. So ask yourself, does it make sense for me to be talking about this? Now, if you're optimizing existing content, sometimes you can update the focus or the focus of the topic so that it's very clear that the collection of content sits together, so that it's not like, and when you're pruning content, you like, and then, Aleto's saying, are these things relevant? Like if you have a random Barbie post on your blog about, I don't know, about tree surgery or something, then you might say somebody thought, oh, it was a great idea, the Barbie movie was out. Well, it's not, like 6 months later, it's not a great idea. So we can take that out so that Google knows that you're concentrating your knowledge on trees, which is what your main blog is about. And you can look at your content. We talked about content clustering. a little bit, and you can take your content and you can say, well, okay, we have this blog about this, and we have that blog about that, and we have that blog about that. They're kind of similar. If we link them together, then Google can understand that these are all about the same thing. And also, if maybe we can change the titles a little bit to show that they're all about the same thing. Maybe we can add a few features together to show that they're all the same, that they're related to the same thing. Like maybe they could have, like maybe we could do a video that talks about all of these different things at the same in one video that we can add to each of them, which again will also give Google information that these are related topics, and it helps Google to get an idea that you have a lot of content and therefore a lot of knowledge about a particular topic. So when you're thinking about your content optimization, also think about how it reflects the knowledge that your business has and the interests that your business has. So if you have a product, then you want to make sure that you're the source for the information about your product. There shouldn't be somebody else talking about your product. There should be you talking about your product, and you're talking about your product very well, so that your clients, your customers, et cetera, know that you know what you're doing. And if you're talking about something related to that, there should also be a good amount of information around that, and make sure that it's easy for people to navigate between the information, so you mentioned this brand new tool. It's like, well, where's the link? I want to see this new tool. I want to see this new toy. I want to see this new thing. So link to them and make sure that they pull through. So when you're thinking about your content optimization, think about how it all works together to show that you know what you're doing, and to help Google to help send the right users to you.
And it's actually something aligned to your business, right? The other day I was seeing a campaign actually of a brand that is it's a furniture brand, and they were actually how you can recreate a Barbie house with decoration tips and some of their own products, not necessarily selling their products, but how they could use some of their products, but also products that they could get anywhere, but with decoration tips. It totally makes sense. They piggyback well the topic, and it totally makes sense and was aligned with the business. So it's many times there will be things that they won't make any sense, and it's not worthy and it's not relevant for you to try to piggyback. But in other cases, they totally make sense, and it's easy to align in a way that it shows your expertise and establish your authority in the field. Following into, because I see that there were quite a few questions about opportunities and tools. One of the tools that I think that we all have, and we haven't actually mentioned, is Google Search Console. Please, this Google Search Console is a tool that will easily allow you to also see content opportunities. So you just need to filter well per country, per device, and then ideally per page type, if categories or listings, to see like more granularly, and then see the evolution over time of not only rankings or positions, but actually click-through rate, because many times we have mentioned how a page might not necessarily have lost clicks, but has lost rankings, or positions, but they have lost clicks over time, is because if I need an update or a new type of page to rank instead, etc. So or the title has been outdated with the year, and the description is not compelling enough. So Google Search Console Performance Report is an amazing tool to identify and compare easily with your own data. Just make sure that, yes, year-over-year comparison, or comparisons that are not necessarily as influenced by seasonality, because otherwise, you know that if you're like in the last 3 months were a high seasonality, and now you're in the low, of course you will get less clicks because there are less searches, obviously. So this type of things you need to be aware. Again, tools are sources, but you need to know how to use them, right? Crystal, yes.
Yeah, please. And I think Google Search Console is a great. So somebody asked, like, how do you find opportunities? Google Search Console is a great place to find opportunities, particularly for sort of technical things as well. So Google Search Console can tell you that pages aren't being indexed, and that's an opportunity. That tells you that there's an opportunity to do internal linking. So internal linking as a content optimization is really easy, and essentially, like, you can see within Google Search Console, you can see which pages are the most linked to internally. You can also, and also in Google and also in Screaming Frog, you can see lots of your internal links as well. That's a good tool for that. But for instance, you can see that there are pages that aren't being indexed. If the pages aren't being indexed, then they can't rank. Right. So if you're seeing that, then you can go back and you can say, okay, we need to link up these pages. These are pages that we could do internally. And then internal linking, you can train someone on internal linking in an afternoon. And then you can have them implement. You don't have to be an expert SEO whiz to do internal linking. So you can train someone on that in an afternoon. You can get them to do some of it and just sit down and do it. And that's an easy content optimization that can help with some of your indexing or some of your indexing things, which is an opportunity you can identify in Google Search Console. Also, Google Search Console has their enhancements reports, which tells you whether or not pages have schema markup, which makes you eligible for rich results, which is another great content optimization, because it doesn't necessarily require any sort of on-page or it doesn't necessarily require editorial approval. So if you're changing the content of a page, the part that people can see, right? If you're changing a blog, the format of a blog, or you're writing a new section on a blog, you sometimes have to get approval from whoever owns the blog, from your client or from whoever's running the project or whatever. Schema markup doesn't require changing the content necessarily, unless you need to add certain parts so that they can be visible in the schema markup. So that means that you can just do it in the back end and it will optimize the page. And that's another technical thing that can make the existing content more relevant for and more eligible for certain rich results. So that's a really good one. And you can see that in your Google Search Console as well, which is really, really useful. And you can also see, whether your videos are working, whether your video pages are helping your pages to rank. You can see lots of different sections around that. And it's a great, fantastic tool. To give a little plug to Wix, we have a Wix Google Search Console integration that allows you to see a lot of that stuff within the Wix platform. And we put that in there because it's so valuable.
Amazing. This is great insight. Thank you very much, Crystal. There are a couple of other questions that I would like to tackle before wrapping up. So an actually great question here from Marianne regarding what should we do if we are getting significant impressions from a keyword in a page, but there's a better keyword for the page, right? So if that particular page is getting those impressions, but no clicks, of course, because it's not as optimized, but rather than its own one, is because it's not well optimized in the first place for the right term that it should be ranking, and or because there should be another page actually targeting a ranking for that keyword that you don't have yet. An example, again, with best jeans for summer 2023, an example. Maybe you have a category page ranking position 20 if you have a jeans category page, but it is very well optimized, super popular, super authoritative, but Google is not ranking it in the top 5 because all of the top 5 are guides. So you're getting impressions from this query, and that is somewhat relevant, but you have not so relevant to be the targeted query because the only guides ranking for this query. So what do? You ensure that your category page is actually well optimized for the targeted queries that are commercial, that should be relevant for that category to rank. So buy jeans for the summer or other query permutations that are more commercial oriented. And on the other hand, that you do have an article targeted for that other keyword that will better connect with that keyword, because if that keyword is not ranked by another page that is better for it, that is able to rank better, is because very likely, or you don't have it, or if you have it, it's because it's not as well optimized yet. Or maybe you have it, it's well optimized and doesn't have internal links and doesn't have backlinks. Remember that SEO is not a one-trick pony. There's an alignment of signals here. There might be other issues. But the first step that I will do is to go and take a look if you have the right page for that keyword already on the website or not, if that page is well optimized, not only from a content, but overall SEO standpoint, to make sure if that keyword is very important, to prioritize that work accordingly, right? There will be always opportunities. What it is important is that you prioritize these opportunities accordingly, so the effort is worthy, right? Regarding how, yeah, Crystal.
I was just going to say impressions are a great sign that like that you have an opportunity to rank here. So if you're getting the impressions there, and again, if it is a keyword that's relevant, because sometimes you get impressions for keywords that aren't relevant. So if it is a relevant keyword, then yeah, that's a good sign that if we invest a little bit of time in this, that we can actually get that. And yeah, again, if it's going to a different page, or if it should be going to another page, then you can take steps internally within the navigation of your page and the priority, making those pages more distinct. With things like your title tags, your meta description, your your headings, like all of those sorts of things can really make a big difference.
It might be also the case that it's not because you don't have that content at all, but you have many pages targeting the same query at the same time. You have content cannibalization issues. Take a look at the flowchart. All the criteria is there. You identify that it's not because the ranking page is not necessarily as well targeted, but there are others that you want to really push for that query. Go and take a look because you might canonicalize one to another, redirect one to another. I see other question regarding when should we redirect one page to another is covered. Yeah. So to validate when it's worthy to consolidate all of them in a single one or not. And then to wrap up, I think that this is critical and important to cover to finish, because at the end of the day, this is how our content optimization efforts will be assessed. How do you measure the success? With clicks, conversions, visibility of others. Like it depends on the goal of your overall SEO process and that particular type of pages in your customer journey. An example, it's not, let's say, reasonable to measure the success of a product page in the same way that you measure the success of a guide, right? I had a client some months ago that I was working in their first SEO process, so it's understandable. I need to educate a little bit there and say, with the product pages, we're ranking in the first positions, and so key KPI 1 achieved, ranking in the top positions, and we're getting the traffic, all the KPI achieved, and take a look at all of the conversions, sales in this case. This product page is getting great, but take a look at this guide, Aleida, ranking in the top positions, getting tons of traffic, but 0 sales. And I was like, because sales shouldn't be a goal for an article. An article is content that is very informational, top of the funnel, and the conversion of an article. Let's establish what is a success metric for this: rankings, traffic, and then get the user to subscribe to the newsletter, engagement to go to the category pages and continue with the search journey within the website. But a lot of things, right? You should talk with your client. However, it's not reasonable to set sales as the goal of a page that is not there to sell, but to educate, to inform at a stage of the journey where people are just discovering the product, discovering the topic, right? So again, the success metrics here and the goals will depend not only on the overall process, but the type of content that you're working on.
And I think it's important to understand what your goal is before you start optimizing the content. So, make sure that they know that we're not trying to get sales on this guide. For instance, what we're trying to do is get traffic. What we're trying to do is get this. What we're trying to do is get that. If we're optimizing the content for rich results, what we're trying to do is get rich results. So we're trying to make sure that we're visible for rich results. If we're optimizing for featured snippets, that's what we're trying to do. Sometimes I've done content projects where we were optimizing just to be visible on a particular SERP. So we were optimizing to add something to the cluster so that we could be on the SERP so that it would push down a competitor. And we weren't expecting like loads and loads of traffic, but we were able to push down that other competitor. So on that particular content optimization, that was the goal. We achieved that goal. And it also helped the whole cluster to do better. So understand what your goal is before you start, and make sure that you do, particularly if you're optimizing a before and after. Aleida mentioned benchmarks. It's worth understanding the benchmark for the piece of content before you start, including like the full life cycle. So if it's something seasonal, then understand that like this, we need to measure this for a year so that we can see the seasonality. Because if we do a before and after in February for something that is, peaks in December, that's not really very useful. But if it's going to be something that's, taking place later on, that's really useful. So understand where your benchmarks and make sure that you know what is the KPI before you start.
This is a great advice to finish, because at the end of the day, this is how we should focus everything, right? To achieve results, this is how we are going to be assessed. This is how our clients or bosses will end up perceiving the value of our work at the end of the day. And this is what we want, right? The end of everything and the goal of everything. So thank you very much, Crystal, for sharing all of those insights, all of those resources. It has been super helpful, and I hope that not only today's participants, but the audience too, who are watching this, have clarified a lot of this, let's say, top questions and doubts that they might have when starting optimizing content. Hopefully with the additional sessions that we have at much more granular level about different content elements or configurations or activities, we can complete what we learned today. Thank you very much.